Hello everyone. So I'm back for another TGIF video and I'm preparing for Sabbath rest. So I'd like to share with you a few things. I said last week that I'd like to continue talking about Sabbath keeping, and I'd like to share with you some of the books I've been reading lately and some of the books that I am going to start reading. And also a few tips about how to keep records or journals of what you're reading and your thoughts and reflections on that. Because since a lot of people are doing the Bible in a Year podcast, there's so many questions I noticed in the threads about how do you keep tabs on what you're reading and how do you take notes and things like that. So I'll just share a few of the ideas that I have for that. Alright, so to begin with, on Friday morning, because I usually don't work on a Friday, I am able to take an hour or two. I tend to wake early. I take an hour or two and grab my regular diary. So in the UK we call this a diary, which in America is often called like a journal, but this is not a journal. This is a diary with the days of the week, and I have this really great one. This side is all for me, and then these columns are for like the kids and things. So I actually haven't put them in here, but I have put my 2 children. I put my child minding hours and things there, and then I can use these lists for to-do lists and meal planning and things like that. So this particular one is from, I've been using it for a few years now. It's from Mum's Office. Is that backwards for you? It's called Mum's Office. I bought it on Amazon. But basically I find it really helpful to have my main diary to be one with more columns in it. So they're usually called a family planner, family diary, that kind of thing. So for today, so I look at what I have to do the next 3 days, so then I can sort of plan out like when am I actually marking like my Sabbath hours that I am taking aside, and just to make sure that, for instance, I quite often do it on Saturday. I know that's a bit unusual, but it's, if I don't have anywhere to go, it's nicer for me to be able to take that time. And now on Sundays we don't actually go out to Mass, we watch it on online, but it means that on a Sunday I can do lots of things, like I have family Zoom calls, I teach my first communion class, and I'm going to Mass and things, and whereas Saturday I can actually put aside many hours for me to actually read the Bible, read spiritual books, meditate, pray, journal, that kind of thing, so that I can actually have a solid chunk of time to do that. So just looking at my diary for today, I have the mobile library bus is coming to my road today, so that's really exciting because I have some books I'll tell you about later on that bus waiting for me. And I have to just nip to the post office. So Friday is also my errand day, and I don't have many errands. I just need to go to the post office, which is in the next village, so that's handy. And the rest of the day I have to make videos for my first communion class, and just a number of tasks around the house for my business, some computer work, paperwork, things like that. So I keep this with me in my mother's morning basket, or just by me during the day so I can check on that. I also have, as we're talking about keeping records, I strongly suggest either using a journal. So I just got this one. Is it backwards for you because I'm on the wrong device? Okay. This is just, it cost £2. It came from The Works. They have lots of great ones lately. This one says, live simply, dream big, be grateful, give love, laugh lots, and take notes. And so this is my ordinary journal. I write down anything I want to just, it's sort of like brain dump stuff where I just want to write out things. I don't keep them though. I recycle or throw them out or burn them afterwards. It's nothing that I feel like I need to keep. Sometimes if I really feel like there's information that I need to keep, I put it in the back, on the back pages. So for instance, if I find, I don't have one, I only just started this week, but in my last one over there, I have in the back 5 pages, some recipes, some links that I need to look up, just some dates and things that I need to get. And so before I destroy that one, I just write down where I need that information. So you can keep your reflections in just an ordinary book. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be leather bound or £20 or anything like that. But another idea, and I used this last year and it worked really well, and I haven't done it this year just only for financial reasons, basically, because everything's a bit tight. But I still think maybe I should go and get this. This is from the Redemptorist publications. It happens to be, and so it happens to have religious art in it. But it is also, let me pick a sort of, there's lots of blank pages. I'm not very dedicated into writing it, but I do have a blank week here. So I just take any kind of diary. It happens to be inspiring with religious art, and I think this year the diary is dedicated to art about Mary, I think. I was really tempted, and I still am, just because of the art, because I'm studying a lot of religious art in my catechism class, which is unusual, but so when I find a Bible quote that I like, or from whatever reading I have for the day, okay, so I mean, and it's a mess. Nobody except for whoever watches this is going to watch it. But so for the day, I might just say, look, I did some Bible reading. I did some reading from my Bible study group, and I found a quote, in various books that I'm reading, and then I'll write them down. So this is one I like a lot. Trust in the Lord forever. He will always protect us. From Isaiah 26:4. So the command that Christ has given us is this: all who love God must love their brother and sister also. 1 John 4. Okay? And sometimes I even put which translation of the Bible it came from. So that's a good way to just jot down a few words, and there are no police checking on how often you are writing in your diary, but it's just something helpful for you, and it helps me remember the verses a little bit better. I'm not necessarily into verse memorization or anything like that. I'm not good at that particularly, but writing them down does help, and it does make a difference in my day when I've been thinking about them. So I also have another recommendation. If you don't want a diary with all of the columns in it, this is a Catholic Mother's Planner. This is from last year. I also didn't get this year. This one was something like £6 or £7. That's actually doable. And that's why I was really tempted to get another one this year. This one is more like in the region of 20, so don't quote me on that. But this is a beautiful book, and I used it for more like personal goals and reflections so that I could write down things. So I'm going to try to find a page that doesn't have. Sometimes I was trying to keep track of what I was eating. Sometimes I was just, keeping track of other goals. So let's go to, it has sections for different prayers and different goals, and has a spiritual challenge each month. And then it has the different saints' days. And then the pages look like this. And it has some quotes, and it always has information about the saints' days. And what's really interesting about this book is that, so the first part of it is a Catholic diary, but even more beautiful, with more quotes than you could ever want. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. But in the back, now, and this is why this is a diary that I probably need to keep for a while, whereas normally I'll get rid of them. My ordinary diary, my ordinary journals, I'll get rid of. But this has a whole section of prayers in the back, and it's lots and lots and lots of prayers. Okay, so that you're never stuck. And then it has sections with notes. Here's a section that says, which activities do I want to do with my family? Essential supplies for my kids. Useful websites. And then there are pages with activities you could do. So we just had Candlemas. So for each month. And these are the types of things that I'm assuming will be the same each year for the most part. Because, what's that? And this is how to make a palm cross. So, but not only that, so those are activities. There is later recipes. So recipes you could do for like making a king cake, or making pancakes. That's coming up. Pancake day coming up soon, next week. So there's pages of recipes. It's a beautiful book. I mean, it's beautiful in its illustration, but and I don't know what it looks like this year. But it's beautiful inside and out. This one. So it is produced by Catholic Mothers Publications, which is www.catholicmothers.co.uk. Okay, so this is another one that would be really perfect for, just as I use this one, putting quotes and things in as well. Or you could use it as a diary and have it inspire you as you go, because each morning when you read that, there's something actually to read some days. So that's good. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I read during my the Sabbath last week. I'm trying to go through my bookshelf and have a bit of a clear out. I have tons and tons of books, and I always like to pass on books that I'm finished with. So I thought I'd really get into this. In fact, I've had it on my shelf for probably a year. And it's St. Francis of Assisi and St. Thomas Aquinas, and it's biographies by G.K. Chesterton. Now, G.K. Chesterton, while being an absolutely wonderful and inspiring man, is actually sometimes challenging to read. And maybe it's just modern times or what have you, but I really found it difficult to get through all of his, I don't want to say it's waffling about, but he, instead of just being straightforward and saying, St. Francis was born in such and such year in such and such town, and he did blah, blah, blah. one good thing is that he talks a lot about what's going on in the country at the time, so that you have a really good context for, like, he was born into this place, and same thing with Aquinas. He spent a lot of time comparing the two, a whole chapter and more, and then he keeps, referring back to, but unlike Francis, Aquinas, and so it gives a lot of information, but it's still hard to kind of wade your way through if you really just want some direct information about the saints. So I don't know if I can recommend this one. I think I wasn't able to read even all of it, and I think I'm a good reader. But these are two must-read biographies by the amazing English thinker, and I think that's the thing about it. He's a thinker, and he's a thinker. He was a thinker. So I'm gonna be passing that one on. As much as I love St. Francis and Aquinas themselves, and even Chesterton. Okay, and so I also finished reading this. I actually think I finished reading this a long time ago, and I'm going to be passing this on to a particular friend. And it's called Overcoming Sinful Anger by Reverend T.G. Morrow, How to Master Your Emotions and Bring Peace to Your Life. So this is a really short read, essentially, and it's quite interesting. It just talks about that sort of transcending the kind of everyday, oh, this happened to me and I should be angry about it, to that next step of saying, why did this happen to me? What can I learn from it? How can I move forward? What is the lesson that God would like me to learn here? And it's a beautiful little book. I think that, do I recommend it? I think some people are already there, and some people may benefit from it quite a bit. So as for most of these things, I usually get them on Amazon. But it is from sophiainstitute.com. I might not put all of this information down below because it's quite a lot of things to type up, and I do have some errands I need to go do. Okay. So I thought I'd also I'd just talk about this book. It's called Souls at Rest by Charlotte Ostermann, an exploration of the Eucharistic Sabbath. So there are very few books. I believe me, I've searched over the years for books about the Sabbath and Sabbath keeping, and there is the Sabbath by Heschel, which is talking about the Jewish Sabbath, and I gave that away long ago, so I can hardly remember it really, but that was recommended to me when I was at University of New Hampshire, and I asked the rabbi, I said, can you give me some books about the Sabbath? I want to learn about Sabbath keeping, and he recommended that one, and so I held on to it for a long time, but I did give it away. So this talks about Sabbath keeping from, I believe, a Catholic perspective. Right, so Souls at Rest is a profound exploration of the meaning and practice of Sabbath for contemporary readers, a restful, poetic counterpoint to the velocity and noise of today's world, and a cure for its primary woes. The ancient, worldwide understanding of cyclical rest is here blended with the formal Jewish Sabbath and made intensely new and relevant in the light of the Eucharist. Readers are invited to cultivate interior freedom by designing a contemplative and personal Sabbath practice. Okay, so that looks like it's right up my street. I've had it for quite a while, and yeah, I'm planning to peruse this tomorrow to see if I'm ready to pass that on to somebody who could really use it. I feel like if somebody could use it, and that I won't be reading it again, but I do need to just check one more time that I don't want to read it again. And I have been reading about Teresa. This I've had on my shelf for I don't know, either 15 years or 20 years, not sure. But one of the parishes I grew up in. Now, I grew up in Madison, New Jersey. And my father and my stepmother and my half siblings, they lived in Summit, Summit, New Jersey, and the parish we went to was St. Teresa's. So I grabbed this book, and I guess it's no surprise to anybody who has watched any of my videos that I am quite interested in the mystics. I mean, being a Celtic Christian, being interested in spiritual healing and all of that, I gravitate towards the mystics. So really like this one, and I still feel like I have a bit more to kind of read again. And I mean, I have these notes in here, and as I read my penciled in notes that I put into the margins like many years ago, 20 years ago, I look at them and I'm like, what did that mean? Like, I don't even know what my notes meant. So this is how much I've changed over the years. And so some things are worth keeping. But I'm not sure that I'm going to continue this tomorrow, because on the mobile library bus today, I have 2 books from Julian of Norwich. So one book about her and one book of her writings, and I believe it's her writings which have been not translated, not maybe adapted for the modern reader. I'm not sure. I reserved a few books, and we'll see which ones are actually arrived this afternoon. So those are my books, and that's, I think, what I'll be spending my time with the next few days is basically those 4 books. I'd like to just talk a little bit about Sabbath keeping, because as a part 2, and I hope I'm not repeating myself, because I could well be. But I'd like to talk a bit about how Sabbath keeping is something that, if you're not used to it, may well take practice. And whenever I kind of veer away from it and then try to go back and spend some time aside, put that time aside, I run into a same problem, and that is that I feel really antsy. So maybe leading up to it, I'm thinking, gosh, I've been so busy and I really could use this rest, and I'm just really looking forward to it. But in the back of my mind, I have, a list of 5 or 10 or 20 things that I really feel like need doing. And that might be chores around the house, which always need doing. I'm not the best housekeeper. And also paperwork. Also, I have coursework for my catechism class, and I think, well, I mean, isn't that Sabbath kind of material? Well, no, not if you have to write essays and things about it. That's my take on that one. So I'll get to the morning of, and I might end up, I can remember this from the beginning, years ago, and also more recently when I've got more dedicated to the practice. And even last week, I woke up and I had my coffee and my breakfast, and I sat here and I had the books that I could read, and I had but all these other things around me, like crafty things, and which I do some craft things for work purposes, so that's running through my mind. And really what I wanted to be able to do is just relax and sink into reading the books that I wanted to read, which were some of the ones I showed you. And I found it difficult. On some days to do that. And I think that has to be part of the process. Like, maybe if you're going to struggle for doing that for a whole day, or 24 hours, whether it's a 24-hour day or whether it's when you wake up in the morning until evening dinner time or what have you, then maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too long of a chunk. So my recommendations are set aside 4 hours, not half an hour, not 1 hour. I mean like a solid amount of time. So it starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. Because if you're not used to it, if you're not used to kind of setting that time aside and spending that praying and talking to God, then maybe you just need a bit shorter period of time to do it. And I would suggest tacking on either a long walk, like a half an hour walk before or after. So then you have 5 hours. So when you feel a bit more comfortable with that and you are able to take that time to read and reflect and pray, then you can add and see how much more you can do. Now, as for rules, well, I think it does need to be a bit personal. There are so many things that you could do, and I don't recommend creating too many rules to begin with as well. So, for instance, you could have your Sabbath rest be one where certainly you start the time with a prayer to God, and you end the time with a thank you, and a thank you to God as well, and thank for the time. But in terms of rules, there are lots of things that you could add. You could add things like you're going to, some people might fast or do a juice fast or something like that during that time. I'm not necessarily interested in doing fast while I'm praying. I just feel like I don't necessarily need to do that. But some people do. And you could have particular clothing or a particular scarf. It could be like a prayer scarf that you use during that time, which sort of marks that time. Using candles, real candles or battery or electric candles. It's really nice, really nice. I recommend that every day. And some people will avoid chores, avoid shopping, avoid cooking. If you could have some things ready made, some ready sandwich materials and, picnic-y style things, depending on how long your fast is. How long your Sabbath rest is for. Some people avoid screens. Now, I sometimes avoid screens so that I'm not watching movies or YouTube videos, but sometimes I am using a screen because I'm listening to podcasts or something like that, or I use the app for the Divine Office that's on my phone. So technically that's a screen, although you can press for the Divine Office app, you can press it so it just reads it to you as well. So that's an added bonus for the Divine Office app. Likewise, you don't need to, you could use a book or memorize the rosary, but you could watch a YouTube rosary. So you need to make your own sort of rules for yourself and just keep within those parameters. And they don't have to be permanent. You could say that, okay, most weeks my Sabbath rest will be on Sunday when I wake up until 6 o'clock at night when we have a family meal together, and then that sort of ends the rest, and then maybe watch a movie. I don't know. So you could set the parameters of what time you're going to do and be specific about it, because the reason why I suggest that you label when you're going to start and when you're going to finish is because otherwise you will move the goalposts for sure. You will say, oh, okay, no, actually, my friend has invited me to go shopping for the afternoon, so that's not going to, whereas actually you could say, okay, I'm going to do that next week, or I'm going to do that tomorrow, or I'll do that at 4 o'clock, because 4 o'clock is the end of my Sabbath. So if 4 o'clock is sundown, for instance. That might be the end of your Sabbath, and then you can go out. So set the parameters for yourself ahead of time. So this is why I have my Friday morning. I can sit down and decide, what am I going to do? And say, okay, well, this week I'm going to do the challenge. I'm going to make sure that I read this book and don't stop halfway through the Sabbath and pick up a novel to read. Other times I'll say, look, I have just had such a heady kind of week in terms of working too hard, thinking too hard, working on my various projects, attending my Bible study, attending my, teaching Bible study, doing a lot of things where you just say, look, my body needs a rest. I just really need the rest before I get ill. And so those days you might just say, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do my morning prayers, and then I'm just going to sit and read my novel all day and just read and read and read until I can't read anymore, and get up and go for a nice long walk, and then come back and read some more, and then gather the kids and do a movie night. So it might be that this is the type of thing that you need to do for your Sabbath rest. And I personally believe that every day is a day for praying, so that goes without question for me. But in terms of reading the spiritual things, it's hard for me to read a lot of those types of things in the week because I have a lot of things coming at me in terms of kids and interruptions and things like that. Whereas I've trained them now to know that this is a more quiet day in the house. This time is a more quiet space. And of course they can interrupt me as much as they need to, but it's that I'm doing my quiet stuff, so it's very helpful for me to be able to set aside many hours in which I can read an hour or 2 or 3 of something more spiritual so that I can reflect on it. I hope that helps, and I really would encourage some comments below and get some discussion on this going. And you can also catch me on Instagram. I want to make another couple of announcements. My Instagram account is basically my Instagram account for all my YouTube channels, but I am actually going to separate my YouTube channels out. So I've created a new one that is Amy's Haven Design. So it will be for all of my crafty things, my cross stitch, the cross stitch charts I'm making, and all of those things. So that way people who are subscribed to this channel just get, for the most part, the spiritual stuff, the lifestyle stuff that may be related and maybe along the lines of spiritual stuff, eco-friendly. I don't do a lot about home education particularly, but it may touch on that. And then people who want to just do more crafty cross-stitch stuff can subscribe to that one and not have to worry about these videos popping up in their feed too often. And of course you can subscribe to both and I hope you do. So I will put a link in below for that. If not this video, I will do it certainly for upcoming videos. Okay, so I'd like to say thanks for watching, and I'd like to say I wish you a good Sabbath, and I hope to see you soon.